Welcome everyone to the game between the world champion Gukesh and Vincent Keymer, the man who had helped him to become the world champion as his second in 2024. But Vincent's rise in 2025 has been so amazing that he's now at 2776 ahead of Gukesh in rating and has achieved so much this year. He's the top seed of the tournament. This will be super exciting clash. Vincent also beat all the three other Indians in his when he played against them in this tournament. Arvind, Pragnananda and Arjun Erigaisi. Will he also manage to get the better of Gukesh? Let's see. Pawn to e4 by Gukesh, and Vincent responds back with e5. We have knight coming out to f3 and knight to c6 played. And now Ruy Lopez or the Italian? He goes one step ahead. He goes Ruy Lopez here. And Vincent plays the Berlin with knight f6 because he knows that Gukesh will do something more active. Gukesh goes for the anti-Berlin with pawn to d3. And now bishop comes out to c5, putting pressure on the f2 point. He takes on c6. And now d takes c6 makes a lot of sense. You can't take on e5 because of queen d4 with a double attack. So Gukesh quickly castles, now attacking the e5 pawn. Vincent defends the e5 pawn with his queen. And knight comes to d2. This knight usually comes to c4, attacking the e5 pawn one more time. And a5 played. Just gaining space, making space for the bishop to go back if needed. The knight comes to c4, now putting pressure on e5. The knight can drop back to d7. He comes knight e3. Now looking at the f5 square, I think g6 makes some sense, but he plays f6 first. I guess if you went g6, you had to be careful about c3, d4 quickly. So he went f6 and knight to f5, attacking the queen. Both players blitzing it out here. Queen f7 played. And now Gukesh goes rook to e1. Again, preparing c3, d4. He plays h5. Very interesting move, because if you go g6, the knight can settle down on h6. But once you play h5, now g6, the knight would be kind of trapped there. So c3 played by Gukesh. He wants to play his pawn to d4 now. A knight jumps to b6. Wow, very quickly played here. And what about d4? No, he goes bishop e3. d4, maybe the point was to take and go bishop b4 to gain a valuable tempo here. And so bishop e3, he takes on f5. Bishop takes c5, immediately taken by Gukesh. The bishop drops back. Now you have opposite colored bishops on the board. And maybe black king is a bit weirdly positioned. You don't want to long castle. You already have a pawn on a5. Short castling is not possible. So the knight jumps back, asking a question to the bishop. I think the bishop must come back. And now do you go even g5? Like super active here. But I think Vincent decides to be a little bit more conservative. He goes short castles. And pawn comes up to a4. You have weakened the light squares a bit. Pawn to c5. And now d4 played here. Can be an idea. Will Gukesh go for that? Yes, he does. Pawn to d4. You know, this is so exciting, the game, because we do not know which direction it's heading to. And he goes b6 even. He's ready to take these doubled pawns just so that he can put pressure. Gukesh could push the pawn forward, but he takes on e5. You can't take fe5, knight g5 is very strong. So he plays bishop c4, attacking the queen here. He goes queen d2. The queen putting pressure on the d file, rook a to d8. And now pawn to b4 played. That's very interesting move, because take, and queen takes b4. I mean, you could potentially have taken knight f6, moved the queen away, e4 square, because bishop d3 is coming. But somehow he wanted to play actively. He takes here, c takes b4, and now knight e5 is natural, because then when you take here, I take back, and the position should be equal. The queen is attacked, but instead Vincent goes knight c5, and he's like, you know what, Gukesh, I'm coming to d3 now. Your queen is attacked, and boom, Gukesh sacrifices the queen. Wow, he could have moved the queen away, he could have gone to c2, but he takes it, takes, pawn takes knight, and now he has a rook, a piece for the queen, and Notherbek there looking at the game. Vincent must be a little bit worried with the change, the transformation of the position that happened so rapidly. Gukesh always thriving with such decisions. G takes f6. And now rook a to c1, putting pressure on the bishop and the c5 pawn. He goes bishop b3. Take here, take here. Which one do you take with? You take with the rook, because you're threatening these pawns. He takes on a4, and now taking on a5 would be a mistake, I wanted to say, because of queen. Oh, there's no queen. The queen is on f7, can't go to b4. So knight d4 played. He could have taken on a5 actually, but he goes to d4, and what Gukesh is saying is, I'm coming to f5, and queen e7 played. Now taking this would be a mistake because of queen b4. Exactly, this is not working out, and this is under pressure. He brings his knight back to f3. Rook to d1, trading the rooks here. Rook takes, bishop takes, and now must take the pawn on a5, or else this would be very dangerous. He takes it. Queen takes e4, now attacking the knight here, and Gukesh brings his knight to d2, attacking the queen. And then rook c5, it goes back queen b7. And simple move, pawn to h3, just king can come up. The question is, does black have enough material? Because right now Gukesh has a rook and a knight, but the problem is that there are too many weaknesses in the black camp. So to play for a win is super difficult here. He goes knight e4. Just keeping pressure on these squares. Bishop goes to e2. And he brings his knight back to g3, attacking the bishop and the pawn. Bishop d1. I wonder if Vincent would be okay with a draw here, but I don't think both the players would like to repeat at this point. There's still chances for both sides. That's how interesting the position is. Queen comes to d8, and now rook c1, not letting the c pawn move forward. Queen d7 played, and rook comes to c4. Somehow Gukesh is maneuvering his pieces. Bishop b3 attacking the rook, and now rook c3 back. Vincent looks at the moves, number of moves that have been played, because on move number 40, he'll get extra 30 minutes. He has only 40 seconds left. Now needs to make the final move. Gukesh plays his 40th move. Now the h5 pawn under pressure. He comes back, and maybe it's a good time to take here. I think take looks good, but actually drops the entire rook. So don't try this. Don't try this. Knight f5 played by Gukesh. I like the confidence with which Gukesh is playing, but now you can see the bishop protects the rook, the pawn protects the bishop, and the rook protects the knight, but bishop c2. Fantastic move. If you take here, queen d1 check, and you lose the rook. So knight comes to d4, and bishop comes back to g6, defending the pawn. Knight to b5, putting pressure here. C6 must, I guess. He plays his pawn to c6. The knight can come back to d4. And now putting pressure once again on the c6 pawn. Bishop comes back to e4, defending the pawn on c6. And rook takes pawn. Taken. Well, now Gukesh also has a passer here. So this is something to worry about for Vincent. He brings his queen up. He wants to push the pawn to c5. Pawn to f3, a mistake here. Because now imagine bishop d3, queen a3. This bishop is a bit loose, you know. At first on e3 it was well protected by the pawn. So bishop d3, he plays it. Bishop comes to d3. And now Gukesh goes king f2. I think queen a3 or queen b4 is good, but he goes c5. And this allows, I think, white to equalize once again with knight f5. I mean, the pawn is looking really dangerous, that I must say. But the nice news is that the bishop is defending the c1 pawn. He goes knight f5, attacking the queen here. I mean, you can move the queen away, but you don't want to deal with some checks here. So takes, rook takes. And now pawn to c4. So the pawn, if the queen comes to d3, you can push c3, c2 as well. But what you can't do anymore is after c3, c2, you can't go c1 because the rook and the bishop both protect it. So queen d3, and now Gukesh can start with his own pawn, lunging ahead. Check. King e6. Check again. He plays king e7. And the h-pawn starts to roll. The queen gives a check. King comes up. And maybe now you have a perpetual here on g6. He goes queen d3, attacking the bishop. Maybe you want to get back with your king here, but he goes bishop f4. Queen d5, attacking the rook. Rook check. King e6. And now h5. And he offers a draw, and Vincent accepts it. And well, Gukesh and Vincent, well, two good friends of each other, finally start to discuss the game. The tournament has been a mixed bag for both of them. For Gukesh, who managed to score 6.5 points, while Vincent managed to score 7.5. For Vincent, actually not a bad event at all. He managed to keep his rating at 2776, which is incredible, while Gukesh dropped a few elo points here. And both Gukesh and Vincent, well, they will be drawing their lessons from this event and trying to get stronger. But it was a great game with the queen sacrifice there by Gukesh to mix up things, but Vincent held his own quite well there.